Hello, my name is Scott Ekman, and I am a coordinator for Nebraska MTSS. At Nebraska MTSS, we aim to empower schools to support and prepare all students for success by systematically delivering a range of high-quality instruction tailored to meet their needs. As you may recall from our previous video on this topic, Jen Pollack provided a thoughtful overview of how we can create school communities that are inclusive, safe, and supportive for all students. She walked us through how a P.B.I.S, or Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports framework, can help prevent problem behaviors and support the social, emotional, and behavioral well-being of every learner. Jen also shared strategies for modifying the learning environment, strengthening relationships, and teaching positive behaviors and skills to all students. In this video, we're going to build on that foundation by focusing more specifically on what this work looks like in practice, particularly in our classrooms. Our focus will be on simple, effective practices you can use to create a learning environment that is both physically and emotionally safe. So how do we create environments that are safe, welcoming, and conducive to learning? The good news is that decades of research have shown that small, intentional changes can have a big impact. These practical steps can be used by any teacher to increase the likelihood of student success. Previously in this series, Jen introduced the idea that we create a positive learning environment through several factors. These include the sensory factors of the space, the physical, social, and emotional environment, the behavioral expectations we set, and our instructional decision-making and practices. In this video, we're going to dive deeper into 4 specific preventative practices that you can implement to support your students. 1, the physical arrangement of the classroom. 2, active supervision. 3, developing and teaching expectations and routines. And 4, increasing student engagement through opportunities to respond. We'll also touch on the importance of one timeless strategy that can make a big difference: greeting students positively at the door. Before we begin, it's important to acknowledge that these practices aren't magic. They won't work perfectly every time for every student, but they do improve the likelihood of appropriate behaviors, reduce problem behaviors, and increase academic learning time, all while helping you build positive relationships with your students. As Dr. Tim Lewis once said, we can't make kids learn or behave, but we can create environments that increase the likelihood that they do. So let's look at some of the practices that help us do just that, starting with the physical space in the classroom. Let's start with the physical layout of the classroom. This is something that is often overlooked, but plays an important role in shaping how students behave and feel in the space. A well-designed classroom environment can help create a sense of safety and security for students. And no, it's not about having a picture-perfect classroom. It's about thoughtful choices that support movement, supervision, and student access to materials and instruction. A well-organized classroom allows us to maintain visibility of all students, ensure easy access to learning materials and instruction, support smooth transitions between whole group, small group, and independent work, create clear, predictable systems for classroom routines. In elementary school, this might look like having supply bins at each table so students don't have to cross the room to get supplies. Or in a secondary classroom, this may look like having desks arranged to support collaboration without blocking walkways and having materials readily available for them to grab as needed. Beyond function, the physical design of a classroom sends a message. A calm, organized environment can help students settle in and focus. A cluttered or chaotic space can contribute to stress or dysregulation. Our classrooms also contribute to a student's sense of belonging. When students see themselves reflected in the space through visuals, books, posters, and by displaying student work so they can see their efforts, growth, and be celebrated, they are more likely to feel included and valued. Think about your classroom or the space where you interact with students. How does it communicate to kids that you belong here?
The thing that makes students more included in the classroom that teachers can do is they can put posters around the room that makes things more interactive and more relatable to the students. They make it sure everyone can participate, and they just make it all very inclusive and interactive.
If everyone's nice and respectful, including the teacher and the students around you, it always just makes the classroom feel a lot more comfortable. And then also just an organized, safe, clean space is always great so you don't get distracted.
A comfortable classroom to me is a classroom that has a part of what I like in it. For example, if I walked into a classroom, I would like to see something that I made or something that I did that represents myself in the classroom.
Ultimately, the way we arrange our rooms sets the tone for everything else. A space that is clear, organized, and responsive helps students feel comfortable and ready to learn. We want our classrooms to feel like a shared place, not just the teacher's place. That sense of safety, security, and belonging starts with the moment a student walks through the door. Now that we've talked about the physical elements of the classroom layout, let's look at how that layer of organization supports one of the most effective preventative practices we have, active supervision. Active supervision is more than just monitoring. It's about being fully present. It communicates to students, I see you, I'm here with you, and I care. And that presence helps students feel safe, connected, and supported. It also increases the opportunities for us to provide feedback and to strengthen relationships. Here's what active supervision looks like in practice. We're moving, constantly, strategically, and with purpose. We position ourselves where we're most needed, especially in areas where challenges have occurred before. We're observing, making eye contact, listening, and checking in with all students, not just the ones nearest to us or the ones who call out for attention. And we're connecting through positive reinforcement, encouragement, redirection when needed, and small relationship-building moments. This isn't about being on patrol, it's about being engaged, knowing where students are, what they are doing, and how they are doing. So take a moment to reflect on the setup of your own classroom or space. Does the setup of the space allow you to actively supervise most, or ideally all of your students at a given time? For example, when you're working with a small group, can you still scan the rest of the room? Are there areas where visibility is blocked or hard to see? Does your furniture arrangement allow you to move freely and interact with students throughout the space? When we actively supervise, we are better positioned to prevent unwanted behavior before it starts and provide timely, positive support, feedback, and learning assistance when students need it. Supervision isn't just about managing behavior, it's about building relationships and creating a classroom culture that impacts student learning and connection. As we have discussed, that starts with how we set up our classroom, how we move through the space, and how we interact and connect with students. But just as important as these is how we establish clear expectations and consistent routines and how we teach those expectations, not once, but over time. When students know how to act, where to go, and what to do, it removes a layer of stress for them. This predictability builds a sense of security for students. We set students up for success when we actively define and teach expectations and routines. Earlier in this video, we explored how schools can create a sense of consistency across all areas of the school by establishing common expectations and shared language. These common expectations, things like be safe, be responsible, and be respectful, when explicitly taught and reinforced, provide safe, predictable environments through common language and expectations for all adults and students when they're in the hallway, the cafeteria, the gym, or the classroom. These expectations are what we do and how we treat one another. And our classroom expectations should align with those school-wide expectations to promote consistency for our students. That alignment supports students by reinforcing consistent norms across environments. We can develop classroom expectations ourselves, or better yet, co-create them with our students. When students help define the expectations, they're more likely to understand them and take ownership of them. Once we've identified these expectations, we can't assume that students will automatically follow them. Just like all academic skills, behavioral expectations must be explicitly taught. That means modeling the behavior, practicing it with students, and giving clear, consistent feedback. While expectations define the what of behaviors, routines define the how. Routines help students navigate repeated activities in predictable ways. For example, in an elementary classroom, an arrival routine might be put your coat in your cubby, get your folder, go to your seat, and begin your work. In a secondary classroom, it might be, hey, grab your Chromebook, take your seat, and get started on the warm-up. Think about the frequently repeated activities that take place in your learning space. Whatever the activity, asking for help, transitioning between tasks, turning in work, there should be a clear step-by-step process. Once we have established that step-by-step process, again, we must explicitly teach, and we do that by modeling and practicing the procedure until it becomes a routine. One simple but highly effective strategy we can use to teach our students expectations and routines is to pre-correct. Pre-corrections are brief reminders of behavioral expectations that an educator provides before a transition to an activity or task. For example, in an elementary school, a common pre-correction might be, let's remember we walk on the right, stay in our line, and use our quiet feet and voices. In a secondary setting, it could be, before we start, quick reminder, everyone participates, stay on topic, and check that your group understands before moving on. This simple act of reminding students of what this looks like increases likelihood of success and dramatically reduces the chance of misbehavior. So take a moment to pause and reflect on the expectations and routines in your classrooms. Are the expectations clearly defined, and do they align with school-wide values? Do your routines cover all procedural and instructional activities and transitions? Do you explicitly teach those expectations and model, practice, and provide feedback on routines? And do you use pre-corrections to proactively guide students through activities and transitions? When expectations and routines are clearly taught and consistently reinforced, students feel safe, capable, and supported. And that allows them to focus on what matters most, learning and growing. So far, we've talked about how classroom setup, supervision, and routines contribute to a safe, predictable environment. But none of that works in isolation. For students to truly thrive, they need to be engaged. Engagement isn't just about compliance or attention, it's about creating opportunities for students to be active participants in their own learning. Students learn best when they are actively engaged and when the content connects to their world. When students are engaged, they are more likely to stay on task, retain information, and build positive learning habits. And one of the most effective ways to increase engagement is by giving students frequent, meaningful opportunities to respond. This doesn't have to be complicated. In an elementary classroom, it might look like using a thumbs up or a thumbs down to show understanding before turning to a partner and explaining their thinking. In a secondary classroom, students might respond to a warm-up prompt on a sticky note and then discuss their ideas in small groups. The point is this: when students are actively doing something with what they're learning, responding verbally, writing, moving, or collaborating, they're more engaged. And when they're engaged, it becomes harder to disengage or act out. Here are just a few simple strategies to promote opportunities to respond. Use choral responses or whiteboards for whole class check-ins. Include turn-in talks or partner shares regularly. Embed written reflections, exit tickets, or quick polls. And use physical movement like hand signals or stand and share to keep energy up. When used intentionally, these practices reduce off-task behavior and increase participation, focus, and academic performance. Look to provide students with opportunities to respond frequently, whether it's with verbal responses, written responses, or action responses. This will decrease disruptive behaviors, increase on-task behavior, and elevate the level of student engagement in the lesson and academic performance. So let's pause here once again for a moment to reflect on your own instructional routines. Do your lessons include regular opportunities for students to respond in verbal, written, or physical ways? How often do you make content relevant to your students' lives or interests? Student engagement doesn't have to be about flashy tech tools or gimmicks. It's about being intentional with lesson design in a way that helps students feel and stay connected to the content, which builds their confidence in their role as a learner. In the previous video in this series, Jen shared the effective relationship building strategy known as 2x10, where educators are encouraged to spend 2 minutes a day for 10 days talking with a student about non-academic things. This small but consistent investment of time helps foster an authentic relationship with students. So let's add one more strategy to your relationship building toolkit, and that is positive greetings at the door.
Part of how I make sure that children feel included in my classroom is something as simple as a door greeting. It seems kind of obvious, but a lot of times teachers stand at a desk in their room, especially in secondary education, in middle school or high school. Students just walk in and walk into their desks, and that eliminates the possibility of having one face-to-face interaction already. So standing at your door and shaking a student's hand and asking them how they are automatically gets a read on how they're doing.
Greeting them, making them feel welcome for the day, making them feel invited, part of the classroom.
Every morning, I enjoy standing at the doorway, waiting for every child to appear, and I have a little choice board. It's just a little square that they can choose whether they want to high five, give a hug, a thumbs up. Sometimes we do a little dance. They can choose how they want to be greeted.
Greeting students with a smile, a high five, or a simple "I'm glad you're here today" as they enter your classroom is a simple way to reinforce belonging, signals emotional safety, and strengthens your connection. And this isn't just a nice gesture, it's a preventative strategy. Students are more likely to engage positively in a space where they feel seen, known, and supported from the moment they arrive. We know from the research that being greeted by an adult who is happy to see them can have a tremendous impact on our students' success. Today, we explored 4 key preventative practices: how we can arrange our classrooms, how we can actively supervise and connect with students, how we can develop and teach expectations and routines, how we can increase engagement through opportunities to respond, and we added a bonus strategy, greeting students positively at the door. Together, these strategies create classrooms that are safe, predictable, and welcoming. They reduce the likelihood of problem behaviors while increasing opportunities for connection, learning, and growth. While these strategies support a more predictable classroom, their full impact is only realized when grounded in trusting, positive relationships with students. I could walk into your classroom tomorrow and use these exact practices, but it's not likely that I would get the same result as you do because I haven't spent time building trust with your students. The most powerful tool we bring to the classroom isn't what we hang on the walls or include in our lesson plans. It's how we show up, how we set the tone, how we connect, and how we believe in our students' potential. When we design with intention, physically, emotionally, and instructionally, we don't just manage a classroom, we create a space where students feel safe, valued, and can thrive. And that's when real learning can happen. Thank you.